Well, good morning. It's a delight to be here with you today. We had such a wonderful full program last week of poems of gratitude that I thought I would just have to keep going this week, especially since we're on this side of Thanksgiving now. So what I'd like to do is share with you a whole program of poems, some of them very old, some of them very new, and some of them you may even find more familiar than you realize. Sarah Josepha Hale wrote a poem called Mary's Lamb, and it's probably one that you know. She was born in 1788. She was the daughter of a Revolutionary War veteran, and her mother homeschooled her. She became a teacher, a writer, an editor, and she became also a fierce advocate of women in higher education and also in the workplace. She was opposed, however, to women's suffrage. She didn't think women should have the right to vote. And so she was in some conflict with some of the feminist tradition, but she was still breaking barriers on her own. She became one of the big supporters of Vassar College. She was also a strong supporter of the Union. And during the 1800s, when the North and the South were struggling against each other, she began a project in 1946 that would take 17 years before it would finally come to fruition, and it wouldn't happen until the Civil War. She is the one responsible for Thanksgiving becoming a national holiday. It was her work that eventually led Lincoln to make that declaration. So it's fitting for us to begin this second week of Thanksgiving poems with one of the most famous poems of all time, one that was written in such a way that most of us have the better part of it memorized. And it's also one of the first things that Thomas Edison ever recorded on one of his wax cylinders. Here we go. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. He followed her to school one day, that was against the rule. It made the children laugh and play to see a lamb at school. And so the teacher turned him out, but still he lingered near and waited patiently about till Mary did appear. And then he ran to her and laid his head upon her arm, as if he said, "I'm not afraid. You'll shield me from all harm." "What makes the lamb love Mary so?" the little children cry. "Oh, Mary loves the lamb, you know," the teacher did reply. "And you each gentle animal in confidence may bind and make them follow at your call, if you are always kind." James Weldon Johnson was part of the way he tells it, he was part of a group of young men in Jacksonville, Florida, who had gotten together to celebrate Lincoln's birthday in the year 1900. His brother, J. Rosamond Johnson, and he decided to write a song that was to be sung at these exercises. And he says that he wrote the words and his brother wrote the music. And their New York publisher made mimeographed copies of what they had created, and the song was taught to and sung by a chorus of 500 African-American children. He writes, "Shortly afterwards, my brother and I moved away from Jacksonville to New York, and the song passed out of our minds. But the school children of Jacksonville kept singing it. They went off to other schools and sang it. They became teachers and taught it to other children. Within 20 years, it was being sung all over the South and in some other parts of the country. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come, treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. It seems appropriate to have a poem that has to do with food. Now, I know most of us may have traditions that revolve around turkey, some maybe around ham. This is one that is by Mark Strand, who's just a magnificent poet, died just a few years ago. It's called Pot Roast, and it is one that, of course, it's about what it says it's about, but it's also, like most good poetry, about something else also. He was the U.S. Poet Laureate in 1990, won a Pulitzer Prize in 1999, and in Pot Roast, he engages the senses with food and with memory. And through it, I think you get a glimpse of what keeps him going. I gaze upon the roast that is sliced and laid out on my plate, and over it I spoon juices of carrot and onion, and for once I do not regret the passage of time. I sit by a window that looks on the soot-stained brick of buildings, and do not care that I see no living thing, not a bird, not a branch in bloom, not a soul moving in the rooms behind the dark panes. These days, when there is little to love or to praise, one could do worse than yield to the power of food. So I bend to inhale the steam that rises from my plate, and I think of the first time I tasted a roast like this. It was years ago, in Seabright, Nova Scotia. My mother leaned over my dish and filled it, and when I finished, filled it again. I remember the gravy, its odor of garlic and celery, and sopping it up with pieces of bread. And now I taste it again, the meat of memory, the meat of no change. I raise my fork and I eat. You may not know many of Ella Wheeler Wilcox's poems, but I am willing to bet that you know by heart at least one line of her most famous poem, Solitude. You can probably even say it with me. Laugh, and the world laughs with you. Weep, and you weep alone. She grew up on a farm in Wisconsin. She borrowed pennies when she was a child to buy stamps so that she could send her first poems off to editors in other parts of the country. And to her great delight, some of the editors began buying the poems, and pretty soon she was selling her poetry as a high school student for anywhere from $3 to $5 a poem. By the end of high school, she had sold enough of her poetry that she could afford to attend the University of Wisconsin, and so she did this in 1867. She published 2 volumes of her own poetry, Poems of Passion, in 1883, and Poems of Peace in 1906. And this is her poem that she entitles simply Thanksgiving. We walk on starry fields of white and do not see the daisies. For blessings common in our sight, we rarely offer praises. We sigh for some supreme delight to crown our lives with splendor, and quite ignore our daily store of pleasures sweet and tender. Our cares are bold and push their way upon our thought and feeling. They hand about us all the day, our time from pleasure stealing. So unobtrusive, many a joy we pass by and forget it. But worry strives to own our lives and conquers if we let it. There's not a day in all the year but holds some hidden pleasure, and looking back, joys oft appear to brim the past's wide measure. But blessings are like friends, I hold, who love and labor near us. We ought to raise our notes of praise while living hearts can hear us. Full many a blessing wears the guise of worry or of trouble. Far-seeing is the soul, and wise who knows the mask is double. But he who has the faith and strength to thank his God for sorrow, has found a joy without alloy to gladden every morrow. We ought to make the moments notes of happy, glad thanksgiving. The hours and days, a silent phrase of music we are living. And so the theme should swell and grow as weeks and months pass o'er us, and rise sublime at this good time, a grand Thanksgiving chorus. Alberto Ríos, born in 1952, was raised and educated in Arizona, got his BFA at the University of Arizona in 1979. He has received all kinds of awards, National Book Award, Walt Whitman. He became the first poet laureate of Arizona in 2013. And here is a poem that he writes that sounds like it's about pies, but if you listen carefully, you'll hear who it's really about. Pies have a reputation, and it's immediate. No talk of potential regarding a pie. It's good, or it isn't. But mostly it is sweet, very sweet. Right then, right there, blue and red. It can't go to junior college, work hard for the grades, work 2 jobs on the side. It can't slowly build a reputation and a growing client base. A pie gets one chance and knows it, wearing as makeup those sparkling granules of sugar, as a collar those diamond cutouts, bespeaking fair day, felicity, contentment. I tell you, everything is great, says a pie. Great and fun and fine. And you smell nice too, someone says. A full pound of round sound, all all good. Pies live a life of applause. But then there are the other pies, the leftover pies, the ones nobody chooses at Thanksgiving. Mincemeat? What the hell is that, people ask, pointing instead at a double helping of Mr. I Can Do No Wrong pecan pie. But the unchosen pies have a long history too. They have plenty of good stories, places they've been. They were once fun too. But nobody wants to listen to them anymore. Oh, sure, everybody used to love lard. But things have changed, brother, things have changed. That's never the end of the story, of course. Some pies make a break for it, live underground for a while, doing what they can, talking fast, trying to be sweet pizzas if they're lucky. But no good comes of it. Nobody is fooled. A pie is a pie for one great day. Last week, it was Jell-O. Tomorrow, it'll be cake. Joy Harjo is Poet Laureate of the United States. She has been since 2019. And she's the first Native American to serve in that post. She was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She's a member of the Muscogee Nation. She's a teacher, a sax player, a vocalist. She's had several CDs that her band has put out. But she's also taught at the University of New Mexico and the University of Illinois. And what she does in her poetry is she fills it with prayers and chants and animal imagery and myth and deep personal experience. And it just rings true. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it. Babies teethe at the corners. They scrape their knees under it. It is here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. We make men at it. We make women. At this table we gossip, recall enemies and the ghosts of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. They laugh with us at our poor falling down selves and as we put ourselves back together once again at the table. This table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. We have given birth on this table and have prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow. We pray of suffering and remorse. We give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table while we are laughing and crying, eating of the last sweet bite. I'm a little embarrassed to say that I didn't really know the poetry of Paul Laurence Dunbar until we lived in Lynchburg, Virginia, and my son went to a school named after him. And when I did start reading his poetry, I was just blown away. It's magnificent. He was born in Ohio to parents who had been slaves in Kentucky and had been freed at the end of the Civil War. He grew up to become one of the most influential African-American poets ever. He was ahead of the Harlem Renaissance, which might not have happened in quite the same way without him. And the thing about his poetry is he was as comfortable in the really strict, elaborate forms of European poetry as he was in the dialect of former slaves during Reconstruction. His poetry reflects the hard realities of race in America, but it also reflects a brilliant and hopeful joy. It's all a farce. These tales they tell about the breezes sighing and moans astir o'er field and dell because the year is dying. Such principles are most absurd. I care not who first taught 'em. There's nothing known to beast or bird to make a solemn autumn. In solemn times, when grief holds sway with countenance distressing, you'll note the more of black and gray will then be used in dressing. Now, purple tints are all around. The sky is blue and mellow, and e'en the grasses turn the ground from modest green to yellow. The seed burrs all with laughter crack on featherwood and jimson, and leaves that should be dressed in black are all decked out in crimson. A butterfly goes winging by, a singing bird comes after, and nature, all from earth to sky, is bubbling o'er with laughter. The ripples wimple on the rills like sparkling little lasses. The sunlight runs along the hills and laughs among the grasses. The earth is just so full of fun, it really can't contain it, and streams of mirth so freely run the heavens seem to rain it. Don't talk to me of solemn days in autumn's time of splendor, because the sun shows fewer rays, and those grow slant and slender. Why, it's the climax of the year, the highest time of living, till naturally its bursting cheer just melts into Thanksgiving. Carl Sandburg is one of those poets that he kind of gives a whole definition to the city of the broad shoulder, the kind of Chicago way of being. And so his poetry has a kind of strength and force and brashness to it. And he wrote this poem, Fire Dreams, to be read aloud, if so be, Thanksgiving Day. I remember here by the fire, in the flickering reds and saffrons, they came in a ramshackle tub, pilgrims in tall hats, pilgrims of iron jaws, drifting by weeks on beaten seas. And the random chapters say they were glad and sang to God. And so, since the iron-jawed men sat down and said, "Thanks, O God, for life and soup, and a little less than a hobo handout today," since gray winds blew gray patterns of sleet on Plymouth Rock, since the iron-jawed men sang, "Thanks, O God," you and I, O child of the West, remember more than ever November and the hunter's moon, November and the yellow-spotted hills. And so, in the name of the iron-jawed men, I will stand up and say yes till the finish is come and gone. God of all broken hearts, empty hands, sleeping soldiers, God of all star-flung breaches of night sky, I and my love child stand up together today and sing, "Thanks, O God." You probably memorized a fair amount of Emily Dickinson's poetry. I think I did too when I was young. One of the things I remember my teacher telling me, and I think this is one of the things that helped me to memorize it, she helped us get the rhythm down by telling us that you could take virtually any of her poems and sing it to the tune of the old TV show Gilligan's Island. Interestingly, you can do the same thing with Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. It sounds a little sacrilegious, I know, but it works. This is one of Emily Dickinson's poems that centers around Thanksgiving. One day is there of the series termed Thanksgiving Day, celebrated part at table, part in memory. Neither ancestor nor urchin, I review the play. Seems it to my hooded thinking reflex holiday. Had there been no sharp subtraction from the early sum, not an acre or a caption where was once a room, not a mention whose small pebble wrinkled any sea, unto such were such assembly, 'twere Thanksgiving Day. This next poem also comes from a Native American source. This is called The Delight Song of Tsoai-talee. It's by Navarro Scott Momaday, who was born in 1934. He is also one of our great American poets. He was born to the Kiowa Nation in the Indian Hospital in Lawton, Oklahoma. And he was brought up on his grandfather's homestead in Mountain View, Oklahoma, several reservations across New Mexico. He managed to get his BA and PhD both from Stanford University. His BA in 1960 and his PhD just 3 years later in 1963. And in 1969, he won the Pulitzer Prize in Fiction for a novel you might have read, Housemaid of Dawn. He was the 2007 Centennial Poet Laureate of Oklahoma. And there are two names in this poem that you need to understand in order to make sense of everything that's going on here. Tsoai-talee is the title, in the title is his own Kiowa name, and what it means is rock tree boy. Tsoai-talee was the name of a Kiowa warrior in the late 1800s. And when he speaks of this relationship with the daughter of Tsoai-talee, he's talking about, I think, his relationship with his people as a whole. I am a feather on the bright sky. I am the blue horse that runs in the plain. I am the fish that rolls, shining in the water. I am the shadow that follows a child. I am the evening light, the luster of meadows. I am an eagle playing with the wind. I am a cluster of bright beads. I am the farthest star. I am the cold of dawn. I am the roaring of the rain. I am the glitter on the crust of the snow. I am the long track of the moon in a lake. I am a flame of 4 colors. I am a deer standing away in the dusk. I am a field of sumac and the palm blanche. I am an angle of geese in the winter sky. I am the hunger of a young wolf. I am the whole dream of these things. You see, I am alive. I am alive. I stand in good relation to the earth. I stand in good relation to the gods. I stand in good relation to all that is beautiful. I stand in good relation to the daughter of Tsoai-talee. You see, I am alive. I am alive. I'm going to close our program of Thanksgiving poems today with one that started out actually not even being written down. It was originally only available orally, because the poet would speak it out loud, but she would never commit it to writing because she was still tweaking it and working on it. She finally decided that she could go ahead and write it down and continue to work on it even after it was published. And I think it's awfully good just as it is. She may have tried to improve it since then, I don't know. Her name is Gabrielle Calvocoressi, and this is called At Last the New Arriving. Like the horn you played in Catholic school, the city will open its mouth and cry out. Don't worry about nothing. Don't mean no thing. It will leave you stunned as a fighter with his eyes swelled shut, who's told he's won the whole damn purse. It will feel better than any floor that's risen up to meet you. It will rise like Easter bread, golden and familiar in your grandmother's hands. She'll come back, heaven having been too far from home to hold her. Oh, it will be beautiful. Every girl will ask you to dance, and the boys won't kill you for it. Shake your head. Dance until your bones clatter. What a prize you are. What a lucky sack of stars. What a lucky sack of stars indeed. Each one of us is. I am grateful for the sack of stars that is you. You know that every part of your body, every molecule, every atom was part of that initial explosion that created the universe. Everything that we breathe, eat, everything that we drink, everything that we touch and taste is made up of stuff that's been here from the beginning, the stuff of stars. And so I wish you, you sack of stars, a glorious Thanksgiving weekend. I hope that you find something today to be grateful for. And if you can't be grateful, then pay attention to who you are and how you are in the world, and trust that in time, perhaps Thanksgiving will come. I believe that the lives that we live remain connected to each other, not only by our origin at the beginning of time, but by the connections that we make here and now. Even in this age of pandemic, when we are isolated from one another physically, we can be spiritually as close as we choose to be. I give thanks for you, and I wish you peace.